Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Next Gen Planners podcast. My name is Amelia Hamilton, and I am the head of community here at Next Gen Planners. And today on the podcast, I am very excited about the guest I have joining me today, and that is Garry Hale, who's the owner of HK Wealth. Welcome, Garry. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad actually.
Good.
We're in the new year, it's ticking along fine. I'm excited about the stuff that's coming up. So yeah, feeling pretty positive. Thank you for
Yeah,
asking.
we're nearly halfway into the new year, which is a frightening thought. So
Yes, I know. It's suddenly you go, right, it's Christmas, it's New Year, and then you kind of look away for a second and suddenly you're halfway through January and you go, sorry, where did
correct.
what? It's always the
How did that
second half
happen?
that
Yeah,
seems, yeah, the second half always seems to drag though. So I'm
yeah,
anticipating are we still in January in the
yeah,
next week or so?
yeah,
But
for sure.
we'll see. We'll see how we go.
Yeah,
Um, so then, to give everybody a bit of a background, a bit of information, a bit of a get to know Garry, do you want to kick things off today by giving an overview about what a kind of typical day in the life of Garry Hale looks like?
um, well, yes and no. What I thought I'd do is give you a sort of typical week rather than a typical day, because I
Perfect.
suspect a
Yeah.
typical day is just a typical day. But I kind of structure my weeks quite sort of specifically. So, for example, on a Monday, I tend to always work from home, which is sort of client prep and admin for the week ahead. Tuesdays to Thursdays, I tend to do my client meetings those days, and I tend to go into the office for those. So that's, obviously client meetings and follow-up work, etc. And generally, where I can, and most weeks I have a Friday off. So that's my kind of typical week, and I've tried to sort of stick to that as a bit of structure. So yeah, and on the client meeting days, I tend to focus on having client meetings at either 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock, where possible. I mean, I'm not that strict, but I'll try to stick to that. And most clients get into the rhythm of that. So yeah, just thought it'd be a bit different and give you a typical week rather than a typical day. So hopefully that's okay.
Yeah, of course, very okay. And I think that's really interesting to kind of get an insight into how other people structure their life and make sure that they can get
Mm,
a good kind of work-life balance and know that every day is different but focused. How long have
yeah.
you kind of worked in that sort of structure?
Yeah, quite a while to be honest. The Fridays off are a more recent thing, probably within the last few years. It's not something I've done for a long time, but it's maybe the just kind of got into the rhythm of, I guess, doing other things and spending time with family or my wife, and lunches, and or for me as well, going sailing when I can. So yeah, it's a
Amazing.
nice way of doing things. So and it gives you a bit of a. I think having that in advance gives you that structure, but also makes you or forces you to do it. Otherwise, you just get caught up in daily life and work, and you just then don't take that time. So yeah, I like a bit of. As my wife would say, I like a bit of structure in my life, so I think it helps. So yeah, it's a good. I
Yeah.
like it. It works. It works for me.
Yeah, I think especially if you are like in a situation like yourself where you haven't got anybody telling you what you need to do or when you need to do it.
Yeah,
It's kind of you
exactly.
organize it. If you're kind of left to your own devices, I'm sure it would be much harder to be as efficient and to make sure that you're getting on top of things if you go, well, I've got a whole expanse of time. There's no real limits as to when I'm going to stop working and start working. And then it can slowly spread into different areas, can't it?
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm without going off too much of a tangent. It's a small business, sole advisor business, and so yeah, you could just get caught up and just be working all hours of the day. And I also tend to. I don't do sort of weekend, well, hence the working week. I don't do weekend work, and I don't do evening work. It's all focused on stuff during the day, and it's just having that structure, and clients get used to it, so they're used to that. But obviously, the Monday Friday thing is most weeks. Occasionally, you have clients who just really need to see you or can't see you out with those, and so you make amends for that. But it's, yeah, just in general, that's the structure of the week from week to week. So yeah. as I say, it works for me. It's maybe not. We're all different. We're all human. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I find a structure kind of a double-edged sword for me, because on the one hand I feel frustrated that why am I trying to like box myself in, but then if I don't, then actually I end up just being less efficient and not as happy. So any initial resistance I have to kind of structuring things more regimented, what's the word I'm looking for, in a regimented way, it always pays off in the long run, I think. And to have boundaries is good. But yeah,
so I
sounds
thought I'd start off by not answering the question you asked, but don't worry, that's not how the rest of it's necessarily going to go.
I got my eyes on you. I'll be watching. We'll see what happens.
Watching me. Yeah.
Okay, great. So moving on then into all the things that we're going to discuss today. And a lot of that is, as you said, it's the beginning of a new year. We're looking forward at the expanse of time. We're looking back at what we've just had. And I thought it would be a really good opportunity to kind of talk about that and talk about what you do and have done, for many years in this industry, to make sure that you're looking and learning at what you've done, and also setting yourself up for a positive year to come. So my first question to you then is kind of looking back at 2023. What are some of the kind of key takeaways that have shaped your perspective, or something that you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for 2023, and even perhaps the year or so before that, it's almost like, where do you start? There's been so much going on, I guess the typical cliches, things like high inflation, high interest rates, global events, volatile markets, cybercrime, the growth of, I guess, ESG, SRI investments, tech, dare I mention AI, regulation, consumer duty. I guess all those things, and it'll be the same for most advisors or all advisors. I think they're all shaping our perspective on what's been going on, with a view to leading into what's coming, down the line. So I guess I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but I guess that's the answer. That's a lot of things in there, but I haven't focused on any one or two things. I've just given, I guess, the typical, as I say, perhaps cliched answer, but they're all very relevant and valid, to be honest, for the majority of planners, and the work we're doing. So those are my perspectives on, and taking them into account looking forward. And I'll probably touch on some of those points and some of the other areas we discussed, no doubt.
Definitely. And I think that's kind of exactly it, that there's just a lot of stuff going on, and there is, multiple things at play at once. You can't just say, this is the one key takeaway that I've taken from 2023, and that's it. There's a lot of areas of change and shift and growth. And so to kind of look at a landscape and to ignore some of the kind of competing areas of things that are going to take your attention, it seems right, I think, to not just go, my one takeaway is AI, because that clearly is something that is growing, and I talk a lot about on the podcast. But as you said, there's plenty of other things that we need to be learning from and paying attention to, that in some ways aren't as glamorous, or
no, exactly, but they're real, and they affect both planners, but also importantly our clients as well. A lot of these topics and subjects, very much so. So it's all very relevant and valid to what's going on and what's coming down the line. So
for sure. So then, as we move into 2024, as you said, January's ticking on. We're already inching our way.
Yeah, we're going to have to get a move on. We're going to have to get a move on with this podcast, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So as we're kind of moving through, what do you see as some of the challenges that financial planners and their clients might face this year?
Yeah, so I guess from the financial planner's point of view, I do think some of the challenges are different for different planners, for different businesses. For example, the different stages of a planner's business, and I guess even the size of a business. So, for example, a new, sort of startup business versus an established business, or, for example, a national firm versus, a small sole advisor firm like mine, will have different challenges, to face along the way. And I think also it's different for different businesses, client segments as well. So, for example, my business is predominantly clients in retirement, whereas perhaps a lot of other planners, or some planners, they're dealing more with younger clients who are still employed. And I guess there are common themes of challenges, but there are also individual challenges that face these different planners and different businesses based on how they're structured and where they're at in the stage of either their career or their business cycle. But I guess some of the common areas from challenges are some of the themes or items that I mentioned earlier. Cybercrime, tech, regulation, the economic situation. They're all common themes that run through. But I think, saying all that, I always think that the sort of financial advice or the financial planning community, they are very resilient. I mean, I've been around for a long time, so I've seen a lot going on over the years and a lot of change. And I think, planners are very resilient. They've dealt with many challenges over many years. And I just think we'll continue to overcome the challenges that are faced, that we face, and will continue to flourish. That's my perspective. So I thought I'd give a positive, perspective on things based just from what I've seen over the years. I think there'll always be challenges, and we'll get on and deal with them, and I think flourish. So yeah, that's
a perfect answer to get people feeling good and positive and invigorated about the new year. I like it a lot. One thing I did want to touch on is, you mentioned cybercrime. There's not something we've talked about a lot on this podcast, actually. And maybe we should have an episode on it soon. Is that something that has come up more and more with clients then, and managing and mitigating circumstances around that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it definitely pops up in conversation with clients, but I guess even just as as a planner and as a business owner, I'm certainly very aware and conscious of it and the risks. And I definitely think it is our responsibility to share that sort of knowledge or information with clients about the risks. I mean, we read about them in financial press, but also in the mainstream press. But yeah, clients are they're very susceptible to the risks of that. And so I part of client newsletters, I've regularly got a little article in there about scams or cybercrime and things for them to be aware of, things to look out for, whether it's to do with passwords or whatever. And we're, for a lot of these people, we're dealing with a lot of money, and there's potentially a lot at risk. So I definitely think it's important, and is a growing area. And without a doubt, because of the growth and rise of tech, it's only going to get worse. So we definitely need to be we need to be on our ball with it, partly to protect our clients from our side of it, within the businesses, but also to share that knowledge of what knowledge we have with our clients to protect them from interactions they've got, whether it's with banking, online banking, or just general email and information they're sharing. So yeah, it's definitely an ongoing issue and theme that will run throughout the next year and beyond. So yeah, I think it's a biggie.
And as you said, kind of with the evolution and the rapid acceleration of tech, the kind of scams are getting much more sophisticated than they used to be, and harder to spot, and even people who might have traditionally been wary and know what to do might fall kind of victim to some of these things, which is scary.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah, definitely is. So yeah, it is an education area as well, for I guess for planners themselves, but for them to, I think it's an important topic for them to be, discussing without frightening their clients, just making them aware and keeping them safe, part of our duty of care or whatever, so yeah.
Definitely. So kind of staying on that kind of theme of looking at things to be aware of and goals, starting the new year, if you do resolutions as a financial planner, what would they be? Or perhaps it's just goals and kind of bigger targets. What kind of goals and targets do you set, or what more widely do you think would be wise to suggest to other financial planners to set for themselves this year?
Yeah, I'm not great with sort of New Year's resolutions. I'm not a massive fan of it personally, but I do things. I just don't perhaps brand it as that, so to speak, if you know what I mean. So I tend to do things, and sometimes it's done at the new year, but it's often just done throughout the year. But yeah, I guess it is a good time to focus on things. So I thought of some themes around that, and I think for coming into a new year or going through the year, I think things that good for me to focus on, but also for other planners to think about, is things like, for example, the client experience in all aspects of it, whether it's all the communications that planners have with their clients, but the tech that they're using, but also things like, I would say the smaller things, but actually sometimes for some people, they may be the bigger things. It's things like, how your office is presented to clients, the coffee you serve, that type of client experience, and just trying to give the clients a good overall experience. So that's one sort of theme, I think that is important, and I'll certainly be working on it, and I would encourage other planners to do that. Obviously the tech aspect of it, better tech, but I think better personalized tech is a big thing that we should be working on. For example, with the growth of CRM systems and how technology is developed in that space, we can really be using that tech for good in terms of, I'm kind of calling it personalized tech. I don't know if that's the right phrase or whatever, but it's the phrase I'm using.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, who cares? It's the phrase I'm using, but you know what I mean, hopefully, by using tech, but it's personalized. It's not using tech and it just becoming, the client's just a number, and that's where some good CRMs can play out. Other things, I think, again, these are not really resolutions, but I guess there are themes, working more on automations within your business and with your clients, but again, on a personal basis. So it's not, you don't, treat them just like a number, but you're just improving that. And that ties back into the client experience thing as well. I think if advisors are more efficient and using better tech and things like automations are definitely a biggie for me coming into this year and beyond. Other areas, things, we're hearing it a lot more and more is, and I think you've already touched on it today, is financial well-being. It's a big issue, important for planners themselves, in their own well-being and, taking time out and doing things that they enjoy and focusing on that, but also importantly, talking to their clients about it. I think it's become definitely a big area and something to focus on. And it is an area I would like to spend more time focusing on going forward. A bit of another, probably a big theme for me, and something it's not a new theme for me, but it's certainly something that's a big part of the business and the work that I do is having what I sort of call sort of deeper, stronger relationships with clients, and I think that all ties into good financial planning. We'll probably talk about a bit more in some of the other areas, but I encourage, well, I've done it in my own business, but I encourage other planners to focus where they can on like a smaller number of higher value clients and develop this deeper, richer, relationship with them. And it's not just about the money, it's not just about, a better quality client just for financial gain, but having a smaller number of good quality clients does allow you the luxury, I guess, of building those sort of deeper, stronger relationships. I'll try not to say that phrase too many times, but that's quite a strong area for me, I think, and it's definitely benefited sort of me and my business over the years. So yeah, those are just some random themes or ideas that I was thinking of that apply to both me and hopefully would be beneficial for others to consider,
Definitely. I mean, there's so much I kind of want to pick up from all of those things that you said there. I guess kind of the first thing you were talking about was the client experience, kind of not just in terms of the actual meeting you have, but the things surrounding their experience with you, whether that's what the office looks like, and as you said, what coffee you're serving. What kind of considerations do you make there, and how long have you thought about that as an intrinsic part of working with people? Did it take a while, or what's been your experience?
It's something it is something I think about a lot, I must admit. And like maybe I'm weird, but well, I probably am. But for example, I often, before a client, so when I'm setting up the meeting room or the office area for the client coming in, and because I'm doing cash flow planning and I've got a big sort of screen monitor in front of them for them to, for me to share the information and for them to look at, I will actually often go round and sit in the seats that they will be sitting in just to get their perspective of, what they are seeing, and just, is the angle of the screen right and things, and, does the agenda on the table, again, maybe I'm sharing too much of my weirdness with everyone, but it's because people say, "Oh, put yourself in the other person's shoes," sort of thing. So I physically do that, and well, not don't put their shoes on, but I will. That's taking it too far. I will go and sit in the other side of the table and just get a feel for how how they might be, and you might adjust the chairs or something like that, and just check that the meeting room's organized and tidy, and I've got the coffee and biscuits and all that sort of stuff. So I just think it's just the way the office is presented. I've got, I like to think I've got it done nice, and I've got a nice piece of art on the wall that actually it's a Scottish scene, and lots of clients will often comment on it, and compliment it's just these. I think it's these little things, but I think it all just helps with that overall. And that's just one example, I guess, is the kind of office environment. But it's things like, I'm in serviced offices where they've just installed a parking system where the clients have to give the registration plate, into a keypad on arrival, and they have to park in a specific area of the car park and things. But in advance of them coming in, I share all that information with them in their sort of welcome type message, so they know all that before they come in, just to make everything as smooth and as easy, so they're not standing pressing a buzzer at the front door, nobody's answering because they don't know which buzzer. It's just all these, it's just thinking through that whole. So people talk about the client journey. I suppose I'm physically, it's almost like you could drive into the car park, you're physically walking the walk of what the client would be doing, which maybe I'm definitely sharing too much of my weirdness, but that is what it is.
No, I just look forward to, in a couple of years' time, Garry walking around the office maybe in some high heels or some wellies, because he's really decided to put himself in the client's shoes this time. I need to walk in their shoes properly now. No,
properly,
but
experience,
we joke, but I mean, it's important, isn't it? You look at that whole holistic client experience, and you want to make sure that you're doing the best you can for them, and they feel comfortable and relaxed. And if they do feel those things, they're more likely to be open and share with you, and you can then provide a better service to them and create a relationship that's meaningful and long lasting. So it's all important, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so kind of the second point you talked about in your answer was looking at kind of tech and automation. And we're going to go into tech a little bit more later, but I wanted to ask, where do you get your information from in that area? Because I think obviously there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of news sources, articles, learning. Is there something that you find more useful, an area that you find more useful to get information from? Is it just word of mouth, talking to people? What's kind of your how do you go about that?
Good question, actually. Yeah, good question. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I know exactly where I get all my information from, but I think it's probably because the answer is it comes from a variety of sources, to be honest. I would definitely say a big source of that information is other planners, my peer group, so to speak. So it's not just coming from the providers of that tech or the source of that, but there are as you touched on, there are so many good resources out there for things like that, and it's coming at us from all different directions, whether it's the tech providers, platform providers, there's, independents out there, working in the tech area. But I think a good source of it is talking to other planners who are, because everybody's people are at different stages of the whole tech process in terms of where they're at and what they're doing, and as you're experiencing from this, advisors and planners are good at talking generally, so they're willing and happy to share information, and so if they've used something and it's really good or it's not really good, you tend to know about it. But I think sort of tying back into that, it's having, I guess, good groups of people to talk to, as well. So it's all very well having peer groups and things, but it's, who are those peer groups? And, Next Gen Community is a prime example of that. There's a lot of, as from the network, online network, there's loads of sharing of information. And so things like that are a great resource. And that, I definitely found that over my career, is being involved in advisor communities. I've been involved in many over the years, groups of advisors that, meet up for various reasons and from various kind of backgrounds and talk about this sort of stuff. So, so I know that was a long answer to a fairly short question, but I definitely think it comes from a variety of sources. And all of them are quite important, but I probably would say the advisor community, the planner community, and peer group is probably one of the best, getting people's thoughts and feedbacks on how they're using it. So that's my ramble to that. Yeah.
No, of course. I mean, well, you can't just say, well, it's this website or this app, because that it's not there's no one-stop shop for this. Is everything you're going to need to know as a financial planner about tech, automation, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. So it is kind of, to get an initial sense of, okay, well, what kind of direction are people leaning in, what's been really useful, what have people had a bad experience with. It's invaluable to be able to connect with other people who are in the same position as you and experiencing what you're experiencing. Amazing. So the final kind of point on your answer before was about kind of the well-being of clients and planners, which kind of links nicely into my next question, which is how can financial planners better understand evolving needs and challenges of their clients? I guess, especially considering kind of this changing economic landscape that you've already touched on before.
So I do think, like, I've been an advocate of, what I call proper financial planning, sort of cash flow modeling, lifestyle financial planning for, pretty much since I started the business, to be honest. I started using cash flow planning software over 20 years ago now, which was, an early adopter in terms of the planning community. So it's definitely been a massive part of the business and how I work and how I advise clients. And I do think, I think that whole lifestyle financial planning and cash flow modeling, as much as the cash flow modeling is just a bit of software, really, at the end of the day, which is what, we've been talking about, tech and software, it does lend itself really well into, I think, sort of things like financial well-being, because I think the work you're doing around that financial planning or lifestyle financial planning does get you into these, and I'll say it again, these sort of deeper, stronger relationships with clients. And I think from that, that gets into, I think I've probably been doing financial well-being for a long time now without necessarily calling it that or branding it that, so to speak, or certainly an element of it, where you're better understanding your clients, you have these close relationships with them where you pretty much know all about, their family and their family members and their, now it's, for me, it's their children and grandchildren. And you know what they're doing, where they're spending their money, what their lifestyle looks like, where they go on holiday, where they travel, what their interests are, what their hobbies are. And I think that all does lead into financial sort of well-being. It's part of that whole, but I just think I've maybe never, and maybe other planners have never really called it that or branded it that. It's just part of, looking after your clients, being interested in them, asking, being curious, asking them interesting questions, asking them lots of questions at times, to gain that information. And sometimes for clients, it takes time. You don't, I think perhaps for newer, younger planners shouldn't necessarily expect to meet someone new for the first time and expect them to just give them a deluge of every minutiae detail of their life and their lifestyle and their family. And trust is a big part of that. And for some clients, I've found it takes time, to draw out some of that information. And sometimes you maybe just need to be patient, and do a good job for them. And it comes with time. I'm hopefully sounding like a wise old man now saying these things. I don't know if that was the answer to the question you asked about well-being, but that was the answer that's the train of thought I went off on in response to it.
I liked it. Yeah, you're making yourself sound, I think, much older than you actually are, but you have had a very long career in this industry, haven't you?
I've been in the industry for 30 odd years, and I've been a financial planner for 20 odd years. So I'm probably, I've probably been advising clients for longer than some of your members have been on the planet. So I've been around a bit.
You've been around the block for sure, which is. But I mean, you haven't been around the block twice or three times, perhaps, as some of the answers, back in my day. It's interesting to get this perspective. Like you said, you've had longevity of clients, and you can have the experience of being able to say, look, that this relationship at the beginning wasn't where it was now. It took years. It took so long to kind of get to a place where the client felt comfortable with me, that they were sharing things, that I felt that I was able to be there for them in a way that was useful for them, and that we built a relationship together, which is, what everybody is hopefully looking to do with their clients, and just be there.
Really important. And you go through whole life stages with some clients. Unfortunately, you go through bereavements, of a partner, and some clients it's then meeting their new partner a few years, or so many years later as they move on with their lives and meet, and then obviously you've got children and grandchildren and all sorts. So you definitely become, in a strange sort of way, almost like part of the an extended part of the family to an extent, within reason. It is interesting, but I guess time creates that. So people need to be patient at times, with those relationships, is maybe a takeaway.
Definitely. Absolutely. And so kind of bringing it back to looking at the year ahead then, and 2024, and all the things it could possibly bring. Do you have kind of thoughts or advice about strategic steps? That's harder to say than I thought it was going to be. Strategic steps financial planners can take to ensure kind of a successful and productive 2024?
Yeah. This is not the best question for me to answer, because I'm not really a strategic target setting. I'm as much as I like structuring things, as mentioned earlier, in terms of growing the business, and I've always ran it as a much more sort of organic. I hate. Again, without going off at too much of a tangent, prior to starting the business, I worked for a big company, and it was all based on setting targets and the amount of phone calls I had to make each day and the amount of meetings I had to have. And I hated that sort of pressure, to be honest. So when I set up the business, I decided I wasn't going to do that, and I was going to have a much more kind of organic and, not laid back in terms, but, it's just a different way of doing things. So, I sort of deliberately don't set myself these pressure-based targets, so to speak, and I just, focus. So again, I guess advice or things I focus on doing really good work for my clients, and things just happen. Look after your clients, do really good work for them, and they stick with you. But they also talk to other people and tell other people that the good work that and so that to me, again, everybody's different, and I know a lot of other businesses wouldn't want to operate in the way I do, but that's where we're all humans and different. But that's what I do, and it works for me, and I like it, and you don't have this burden or pressure of so many things you've got to do, or I've got to. And I think also it takes away the whole sort of monetary pressure around, you must set yourself a target of, having so many assets under management, or, that whole thing. It's just, I don't know, looking at, maybe it sounds a bit too organic, but looking after people and doing the right thing and all that, that's what I like. And it's what I enjoy about the job, to be honest. It's a big part of what I enjoy about the job without working under the pressure. But some of the other things, I think, there's as we touched on earlier, and you mentioned right at the beginning, there's loads of noise out there about lots of things, and I think it is important, for planners and coming into this year and years ahead, is to sort of drown out a lot of that noise and having their own sort of focus on what's really important to them, to their businesses, to their clients, and just working on that, and pushing the noise to the side and just getting their heads down and doing the things that they need to do or want to do. I kind of touched on it there, but I don't specifically chase, the money or the targets. I just, it's this having a focus on doing really good work for people, which I think is really important. And I think success comes from that. I think, do a good job, yes, work hard, but do a really good job. Work hard for your clients, but do really good work for them and with them, and success does come. And then I think probably some of the other themes we mentioned earlier tie into, what's coming down the line. And again, to repeat it yet again, is build these stronger, deeper relationships with clients, and work on, ideally smaller numbers of clients. But I know that luxury isn't, always available to everybody, but where possible, that those are things that I would definitely be, the things I do, and I would encourage others to at least try some of them, if not all of them, so.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice answer, rather than saying, you've got to focus on X, Y, Z. This should be your targets. If you haven't accomplished this by this point, then, what are you doing? You need to reevaluate and If you can bring that focus back to the client and back to what you're actually doing and why you're actually doing it, you still are having like very clear goals for yourself, but, they're just not, it's harder to track. How can I make someone feel comfortable? Like, how can I make sure that their journey from the car to my office is the best it could be, and they are not flustered about where to go? Like, they're very specific and focused points and goals, but just not necessarily in a traditional kind of financy sense.
Yeah, in a weird sense is what you're trying to say. I know. I'm fine. I'm fine with weird.
I like it very much. Okay, so we briefly touched on technology. Obviously it is a huge part of, as you described, the noise that is out there, and it's something that it's people need to be paying attention to, and people need to be to some extent making sure that they're staying ahead of a curve and not getting left behind. In your opinion, in this area of kind of rapid technological advancement, how crucial do you think it is for financial planners to embrace and utilize technology to streamline processes and enhance client services?
I mean, even someone as old as me, it's absolutely vital. It's a critical part of businesses going forward, but for good reasons, for all the good reasons that it's there. We all sort of, I guess, grumble about technology to some degree, but there is some amazing technology out there, and some of it's just getting better and better. So, without a doubt, it's absolutely vital to a financial planner's business going forward, and not just the sort of newer, younger planners coming in and embracing it. I think, obviously, planners are definitely getting frustrated with it at times as well, and there's lots of frustrations around it. For example, the much talked about lack of integrations between things, whether it's tech or platforms, or CRM, back office systems, all that. So there's definitely work to be done in some of these areas, but I do think that there is work being done. There's lots going on. There's other frustrating examples of things like the letter of authority process, which you may or may not be aware of, in terms of just the antiquated ways of dealing with that, and that is a major frustration for advisors bringing on new clients. So there's things that could definitely be improved, but there are also some, even for me in the last couple of years, with COVID coming around and things, and working from home permanently, and things like Zoom, and for some people it's such a basic thing, but the whole Calendly, the introduction to me for Calendly and booking client meetings has been, I would say, almost revolutionary. But it's also, again, most of my clients are retired, but they're perfectly happy using that as a booking system, so to speak. And it's a simple, great automation, basically. And I think it's that type of example that we need to be rolling out more into our businesses, to make things happen more efficiently and more smoothly. I think also importantly, where it benefits both the planner, but also importantly the client. It's not just about making an advisor more efficient and more profitable and making more money. Where it helps the client, and touching back to this client experience, where we can make tech better and give them a better experience, then that's crucial. I think the other thing, so those are just some examples, and I've mentioned it a few times already. CRM systems are also a crucial part of an advisor's business going forward, and it's an area definitely coming into this year and beyond that I need to focus and spend more time on, to get that type of system working better for me and more efficiently. And again, I touched on it, this personalized technology and personalized client communications that can all come from this better tech and better CRM systems. I know I've touched on it about automations, but that's a big theme for me going forward, is there's so much of what we do sort of disjointed and reliant on people. And I know some of the larger firms in particular, perhaps, in my opinion, have probably too many admin type people doing stuff that, don't want to become unpopular and put people out of jobs, but there's a lot of reliance on people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. That they should be, technology should be doing, and maybe they should be doing something else, if you know what I mean, that's maybe more beneficial. Whereas I think there's almost a laziness to just give that to somebody to do, instead of finding the tech solution that can do it. And I think that's where automations, real proper working automations within financial planning businesses and tech are going to work really well. And again, that does all tie back into CRM systems, I do believe. And I think the final point on tech, we can't talk about tech without mentioning AI. Is just such a big, 2023 was definitely a big year for discussion and talk about AI. And, I'm just sort of dabbling in it at the moment and finding my feet, so to speak. But I'm looking at it and playing around with it and what have you. And I think we've all probably still got a lot to learn about it. But it is without a doubt, it's a massive resource if managed and used properly in a safe and whatever environment. But yeah, it's huge as well. And I think we're going to see lots of innovation coming in that space over the coming year and beyond. So yeah, tech's huge, absolutely huge, big theme going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, thank you for sharing kind of your experiences and your thoughts on that as well, because I think it's complicated, and there isn't a clear right, wrong here. It's all very much up for debate, up for discussion about where and how it can be used. So I enjoyed that answer very much, and we could talk forever and ever and ever, and there's loads of questions I have, but time is ticking away.
Sure.
And so I think no, please keep going. But to kind of round things off, there's two questions that we always ask on every single podcast that I'd like to ask you. And the first question is that we always like to ask our guests for a book that's helped them in their career. So do you have a book in mind for us?
Yeah. So like I do read lot. I mean, you can probably see even in the bookcase behind me, they're not just for show there. Although I did put them in color order just because I think that was a COVID thing and people were doing that. But I do read. I'm not a great reader. I find reading difficult, I would admit, but I do read lots of books, and I think it's an amazing resource for planners. So I would definitely, first of all, encourage people to read books. I know that's not what you were asking, but reading a variety of books is a great thing, and there are so many great resources out there. But I think there's one that always stands out for me, and it's a little bit out there, and it's a book I read. I think it was probably 25 years ago. It was certainly a long time ago, and it's a book by Susan Jeffers, and it's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And it's a little book. It's not a big book, and it's just about, I guess, embracing your fear and just turning it around and turning it into some sort of positive action. That's the kind of basic ethos of it. And I think, I don't know, it was at the time I read it, it was in advance of setting up my business and things like that. And it just kind of gave me some confidence to go out and do something that I maybe wouldn't have otherwise done. So it's just a book that definitely, I actually probably should reread it again, because as I say, it was so long ago that I originally read it. But yeah, that's, in my opinion, that was a great book, and probably a little bit of a turning point in my life and career. But yeah, loads of great books out there, and loads of great books around money and finance. Nick Murray, Morgan Housel, people like that. But that one's a little bit left field in terms of it's not the typical book that people might say, sort of thing. So yeah, great little book that I'd recommend people have a look at if they're looking for a bit of a boost or confidence booster or whatever. So yeah, just a thought.
Yeah, I like that very much. I really like the kind of just do it and feel what you feel, but just do it anyway.
Get on, because what's the worst that's going to happen? You might feel uncomfortable for a bit. Even arguably doing this today, I don't do lots of these interviews or podcasts, and you're kind of a bit anxious sometimes before doing them. But once you sort of get into it and you get talking and you've got a nice presenter, and it all just goes swimmingly. So
Stop it, Garry. Flash will get you everywhere. Stop it. Okay, so final question then is, looking ahead, what are you most excited about to see in the world of finance within the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, the next 10 years it's a long time, isn't it? I might still be around in 10 years' time. Who knows? I think, without a doubt, and without repeating too much of earlier, the improvement and growth of tech and financial planning specifically, I think is going to be massive, and I think is really important to what we are doing. And I do think, as mentioned, AI is going to be a big part of that, without a question of a doubt. But I think this good tech all joined up, working, talking to each other, improving the client experience, making advisors' businesses efficient, making them personal, doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So it's not doing everything, it's doing the bits we want it to do, and still the planner doing the good, the stuff I was talking about earlier, the good stuff that the planner does with these good client relationships and things. The tech's not going to take away from that. It's just going to improve all that, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what tech's going to be doing over the coming years. I think the other thing, which we haven't really touched on at all, is the whole, a big thing for me, certainly, and both personally and within the business, is the whole kind of ESG and SRI investment space. That's a massive space that's, it's again, we haven't, unusually considering what we have talked about, we haven't really touched on that. But I think that's a big area that is, it's not going away, and I think it's just going to improve and get better. And I think that will provide, I think it will provide good things for planners and for clients, and also, I guess, on a bigger scale for the environment and for the future ahead. So yeah, I definitely think that's a big area to focus on and to watch going forward. And I think just finally, to again, to hopefully finish on a nice positive, is I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the next generation of planners kind of flourish. I touched on something similar earlier, and I guess I use this community as an example that, as I've said, I've been around a long time. This has definitely been the best community I've been involved in my career, since all those years ago. So, and so the people I'm meeting and seeing, it leaves me with, loads of confidence as to what the future of financial planning looks like. So yeah, I'm really excited to see the financial planning profession flourish, and I definitely think, looking around, this community, that it's in good, safe hands. So yeah, that's my positive note to finish on. So
yeah, a brilliant positive note. And I mean, we're going to have to just have another whole hour on ESG, aren't we? And talk about all there is
that's another whole
to talk
subject,
about.
isn't it? Yeah, we've not
Yeah.
even scraped the surface on that one, but yeah, it's a biggie for sure.
Indeed. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you at the beginning of this hopefully great, wonderful, successful year that we're all going to have.
I'm sure it will be.
Yes, it was lovely talking to you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Many thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. So that was Garry Hale on the Next Gen Planners podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear all of our previous podcasts on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and on our website. There you can also find more information about our brilliant community. And finally, if you can, do leave us a review. It really does help us to grow the podcast and get it out to even more people. Thank you very much.